Hello and welcome back to UCL Review, where we round up the biggest results and talking points from across the best sporting competition in the world. It's semi-final second leg time. Joining me today to break down a truly mental game between Man City and PSG, it's Henry Hill. Henry, what went down at the Etihad?
Well, Manchester City have finally done it. They've reached the European Cup final for the first time in their 141-year history, and at the 10th attempt in the Champions League. So you feel like it's the final piece of that project, isn't it? The new owners have come in. They're one game away from achieving that now, and their week could get even better because the Carabao Cup champions can be crowned Premier League champions for the third time in 4 seasons if they beat Chelsea this weekend and results go their way. So watch that space. But let's focus on this game because they've got a big a Champions League final to look forward to, either against Real Madrid or Chelsea. And, you know, if we look at their team going to the side that won at PSG in Paris, Fernandinho and Zinchenko, they came in for Cancelo and Rodri. And for Pochettino's side, they were without Kylian Mbappe. We wondered whether or not he was going to start. He was on the bench. It looked like just a game too far for him this weekend. He missed Saturday's game against Lens as well with a calf injury. So they went with Mauro Icardi up front as well. And Diallo came in at left back for Thomas Bacca, whilst Ander Herrera played instead of the suspended Idrissa Gueye as well in the central midfield there. So kind of similar to the kind of teams we've been seeing PSG put out in the Champions League, but it always looked like it's going to be a really big uphill struggle for them, wasn't it, going into this game at the Etihad, which had a sort of mist of hail all over it, didn't it? It was a completely kind of bizarre May scene in Manchester. I'm sure people were all over a bit confused about what was going on. But anyway, PSG seemed to adapt quicker to the bizarre conditions they were faced, and it looked like they had a penalty after about 6 minutes when the ball came in and it hit Zinchenko on the shoulder. Fortunately, I mean, you know, love it or hate it, this is what VAR is good for, isn't it? Because they went to that and it was quite rightly cancelled. It would have been absolutely devastating if that kind of thing had stood. But, you know, after that, Manchester City then suddenly took over and they were ahead 4 minutes later. Riyad Mahrez reacting first to like a deflection to poke home. Maybe the keeper could have done better, I'm not quite sure. Maybe you have an opinion on that. But yeah, Manchester City punished PSG early on, and just from then on in, I mean, actually in my opinion it set it up for quite an exciting game, because then you knew that PSG really had to go after it, didn't they? And they did start to cause a bit of danger to Manchester City on the counter-attack. Marquinhos hit the crossbar from a header, and then Di Maria, he missed an open goal after Ederson handed Bernardo an almost impossible ball to deal with there. So they had their opportunities to try and get back into it and put a bit of pressure on City, but I have to say City's defence was just exceptional, really. We'll get into that, because at half-time PSG had 55% possession with 7 shots, but were yet to test Ederson, and Manchester City had 6 efforts with 2 on target there. And I was watching the game and I was thinking, I've never seen a Guardiola side so fired up. Do you know what I mean? Like almost aggressively fired up for a game. They were celebrating every block. We saw that in the second half with Zinchenko staying on his feet to deny Neymar. You saw Neymar was waiting for the player to go down, but Zinchenko stayed on his feet. I've never seen, Guardiola defenders all jumping up and hugging him. And Ruben Dias, he was like a man possessed, wasn't he, throughout that, for a lot of that game there. So at the back, they looked brilliant. It was really lovely, amazing to see that from Manchester City's side. But then we really saw kind of the best of City going forward too. It was on 63 minutes, City had their second. Phil Foden sweeping home passes with, he got sort of 1-2 of De Bruyne into the box, crossed over, and Mahrez was there. Again, I thought, Foden and De Bruyne linked up really well throughout the whole game, really. But from then on in, it kind of looked like PSG completely capitulated, didn't it? Because 6 minutes after going 2-0 down, they were down to 10 men. And actually, if you listen to the podcast coming out, we were joking about how PSG just seemed to be involved in so many red card situations at the moment. And this is maybe the thing that could destabilise their Ligue 1 challenge against Lille. And sure enough, they picked up their 10th red card of the campaign when Di Maria, who I thought was pretty poor in the game, he sort of inexplicably stamped on Fernandinho's foot, which was real. I just sort of saw the energy just completely sat from PSG then, and after that it was kind of a classic case of some horrific tackles going in on some of the Manchester City players. I thought Pereira was lucky to get away there, but Maybe we shouldn't have been too shocked that Manchester City managed to get through. They're now unbeaten in 5 UCL matches against PSG. That's 1-3 and drawn 2. And they've broken the record for the most consecutive Champions League wins by an English side with 7 in a row, beating Manchester United from 1965 and 1966 and Leeds in 1969 to 1970. So that's kind of European Cup wins, and Arsenal in 2005 as well, who all won 6 in a row there, but really stamping their authority and pedigree on this competition as an English side. And this will be their first European final for 51 years, last playing in the 1970 Cup Winners' Cup against, here we go, Gordon Zorbitz.
Good effort.
I'll have to search YouTube for the highlights of that one. I think this breaks Sporting's record for sort of the gap between their last 2 finals. But you would never know, looking at this City side, that this was their first European Cup. They look born ready for this. Brilliant. And I mean, for me, I've just found that while PSG were waiting for moments of magic from individual players, City just had the whole complete package, and I think they thoroughly deserve to get through. But I mean, nonetheless, PSG will be disappointed with this, won't they? Because they kind of went down with a bit of a whimper, didn't they?
Yeah, I mean, it wasn't really that impressive. And as you say, they'll be disappointed with how they went out. I mean, they took an early lead, obviously, against Man City after 15 minutes of the first leg, dominated that first half. We were all pretty worried on our live stream last week that Man City were going to be limping out of the competition themselves, but they came storming back into it. PSG switched off at half-time in that game. They then had to play the final 13 minutes with 10 men after Gay's red card, and then they completely went into meltdown after Di Maria's red card here, which was a really foolish and petulant challenge. Just completely unnecessary. Neymar, Verratti, Kimpembe, they were all at it, really. There was no leadership in this team. And obviously their chances of a comeback in this game were obviously severely diminished before a ball had even been kicked, with the fact that Kylian Mbappe was missing. He's obviously scored 27 goals and provided 17 assists in 45 Champions League games in his young fledgling career. That's 0.97 goal contributions per game. So obviously a massive loss, but PSG can't complain too much because they obviously played 2 legs against Bayern Munich in the previous round, who were out without Robert Lewandowski, I should say. The 22-year-old superstar obviously missed Saturday's wins over Lens on Saturday with a calf injury and wasn't fit to even feature from the bench. He scored 37 goals in 43 games in all competitions this season, so you can't really quantify just how big a loss that is to PSG. And in his absence, they struggled to really create clear-cut opportunities. They finished with 13 shots but got 0 on target, compared to City's 12 and 5. But that was mainly down to, as Henry mentioned in the first section, some magnificent City defending. No surprise, given that City have only conceded 4 goals in 12 Champions League matches this season. They are just a completely different side to the 2017-18 and 18-19 sides of Pep Guardiola. They are so much more solid defensively. And as you say, there's just been an improvement across the board. Obviously, Ruben Dias has come in and made a monster difference, but the improvement of John Stones, Kyle Walker as well, who has to start for England now, Zinchenko as well, defending as if his life depended on it. It was a really impressive defensive display from Man City, as they were shielded expertly by Fernandinho, who is just the master of the tactical foul. Obviously, it was always going to be difficult after the red card for PSG. They became just the 3rd side after Deportivo in 2003-04 and Lyon in 2009-10 to receive a red card in both legs of a semi-final. Obviously, it's going to be really difficult against a side who dominate possession as well and as confidently as Man City. And as I said, they then went into total meltdown. It was a really unimpressive display by them towards the end of the game as well, having forced City into some awkward moments in that first half. That Di Maria miss, there was a few mazy Neymar dribbles, Marquinhos hitting the bar as well. But in the end, it was fairly straightforward for Man City, and they were very much deserved winners. In terms of key performers, well, we've got to give mention to Phil Foden. Still just 20. He'll be 21, I think, on the day of the Champions League final. What a magnificent occasion for him. He had a great game here. 2 tackles, 1 aerial duel, 3 dribbles, 1 key pass, 3 shots, and hit the post as well. There was a moment where he spun his man, had that shot that hit the post, where I literally let out a groan. It was a very weird moment, but quite weird imagery for you all at home as well. But was that Henry?
It reminded me of that Gareth Bale, sort of those moments there where he sort of burst down the left and shot, that kind of Inter Milan game. I saw a little glimpse of that as he sort of strided down on his left foot, and I agree with you. I threw my arms back up like that when he hit the post. I wanted it so bad, but
I know, it was amazing. There was also a moment earlier in the second half as well where He stupidly ran himself offside as well, but he was in so much space. He was causing constant havoc down that left-hand side. And as you mentioned in your section as well, that Foden and De Bruyne 1-2 for that second Mahrez goal, just perfection. Kyle Walker, as I said, was also incredible. 9 tackles and interceptions for him, 3 aerial duels, 1 dribble and 1 key pass as well. Quite simply has to start for England for me this summer at the Euros. Just a phenomenal all-round footballer and just still hasn't got the credit that he deserves for me. Man of the match, though, I'm going to give it to Riyad Mahrez. I mean, 2 goals in a Champions League semi-final. Doesn't really get any better than that. 4 tackles and interceptions from him. 5 dribbles, 2 key passes, 4 shots and 2 goals. Gave Abdou Diallo a torrid time at left back as well. And he was very limited going forward as well, Diallo. Perhaps the result, though, isn't too much of a surprise when you look into it. In PSG's major European history, they have never progressed from a tie after losing the first leg at home. Some people, obviously, mainly on Twitter, will be now arguing that Pochettino is under a little bit of pressure. PSG are still 1 point behind Lille in the race for the Ligue 1 title. He's only won 72% of his games in charge of PSG. I say only, but for PSG that's actually quite poor. I think that's 3% lower than Tuchel and 5% lower than Emery before him. And he's already lost 4 league games in charge of PSG, with that indiscipline really coming back to bite them at times throughout this season. Obviously, it's difficult to blame him too much. Leonardo and Tuchel had that fallout. They didn't invest that much last summer, I should say. But he'll be disappointed with the way they quite meekly exited the competition here. After playing 5th place Lens this weekend, Lille placed Saint Etienne and Angers, who were 12th and 13th. So they are probably strong favourites for this title now. Meanwhile, City became the first English side to win 11 consecutive games in the Champions League. Up next for City in what could be a dress rehearsal for the Champions League final. They play Chelsea this Saturday. And I just want to give a moment to appreciate Man City, because in terms of their ownership structure, in terms of the way they've pumped money in, which is state-owned, yeah, you can have some queries over that. You can criticise their acquittal for financial fair play. There was some dodgy moments around that whole case. I'm not going to get into it there. But in terms of a footballing project, what they have created is pretty much unrivaled in the space of, 10 years, but particularly in the last 5 with the introduction of Pep Guardiola. The signings that people ruled out as too expensive or were likely going to flop, like Sterling, Bernardo, even people doubted De Bruyne. People thought Ruben Dias wouldn't be good enough for the Premier League. The level of coaching, the playing philosophy, the results, they've just been a phenomenal side to watch. And I'm glad that they finally reached the European final that they deserve. I mean, Henry, are you in agreement with me there?
Yeah, it's like they signed Robinho, that didn't work out, and they got that out of their system, and then on in have sort of just narrowed in on proper players. I mean, they hardly put a foot wrong, and they're not one of these £100 million. I don't think they spent over something like 65 million on a player in particular either. So they get it right every time. They know what they're after. They know what to improve the squads, and they successfully do it. And I completely agree with you. I mean, now they've got Phil Foden, sort of a younger guy coming through their academy. That's going to give hope to the rest of the players coming through there. I completely agree. And there was a moment in this game where Neymar literally just stood still right at the end. There was nothing he could do. And in the end, he had to go back to Thomas Bakker, who then passed it back to Keyless Navas in goal. And I thought that just really summarised this game here. It was an elite side with sort of players running throughout it against another side. He was just sort of relying on little moments of magic to maybe get him through. It just wasn't going to happen. Just quickly to address that Pochettino thing, though, I think he'll be alright. I think PSG
absolutely
understand that they need to go again this summer. I imagine there'll be some kind of funds available to him there. PSG are one of the big clubs who probably can afford a few of these players here and there who might be available. So yeah, I think PSG semi-final of the Champions League isn't too bad for them either, really, is it? It's still sort of one of their better results in recent history. So they'll be fine going forward. But I completely agree with you. City, what a side. And I think they thoroughly deserve their appearance in the final. And so much better when they limped out against Lyon last year. So yeah, well done to them.
Yeah, absolutely. Massive turnaround in the space of 12 months. And before everyone starts hammering PSG in the comments section, I mean, as Henry says, they've had some great results in Europe over the last couple of years. They were very unfortunate in the 2020 Champions League final against Bayern. They then beat them this year. They've beaten Man United. They've beaten Leipzig. They've beaten Dortmund. They've been great to watch, and they've been great value in this competition too. But this over this tie, ill discipline probably cost them, some poor finishing on occasion, and Man City worthy winners. So that's our take on Champions League review for tonight. I'll be back on Thursday morning with Chelsea's very own Zach Jalab to break down their possible route to a Champions League final, which I'm sure he's going to be very excited about. But if they've enjoyed this show, Henry, what should they go and watch now?
We'll go jump on the podcast. I'm with Sam and Pate this week, talking things about Man United, looking at the Ligue title race, and also Inter Milan, whether or not they can build for a Champions League push next season as well. So go enjoy that.
Perfect. I love the podcast. That sounds like a cracker. Thanks very much for watching, guys. We'll catch you next time. Bye.
Bye.